When Zach and I got married, I remember thinking this on our honeymoon, that life just couldn't be more perfect. We're both healthy. I'm like head over heels in love with this man. We've got God. How could anything go wrong? Yeah, that was so naive. I just kind of assumed what I felt on my wedding day on my honeymoon would be the reality for forever. What's up, sisterhood? It is just Kristen here today. And this past summer, Zach and I actually celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary, which, yeah, it's been a hot minute. It's been a decade, and I don't feel nearly old enough to have been married for a decade. And at the same time, we've gone through so much over the past 10 years that it's like, wow, it almost feels like more than a decade. But as Zach and I were really thinking back on the past 10 years of marriage, we both have regrets. We both have things where we're like, man, I wish we had known that sooner. I wish we had handled that differently. And I have personal regrets, not about getting married. I am so 100% glad that I married Zach and that we have a decade under our belt. And I hope God gives us many, many more. But I do have some regrets. I'm going to share those with you today. So stick with me. And then I have some practical application for those of you who are newly married or not married yet. Or maybe you're like me, 10 years in, and you're like, yeah, there are things I wish I had done differently too. I can't wait to hear from you. But before we dive in, I just want to say a huge thanks to all of our patron supporters, those of you who give $1 or $2 to make every single one of these videos happen. You guys are awesome. Thank you all so much. You may know that every single month on Patreon, on the platform, we give free digital resources to all of our supporters. So if you want to get some really epic goodies like this, How to Discern a Guy's True Character, a simple, practical, and biblical guide, downloadable. This is one of our most recent, actually the most recent downloadable PDF was Set My Heart, a 7-day devotional for drawing close to Jesus. Just a beautiful 7-day guide that you can download. Some other ones from the past, 5 strategies for thriving as a single girl, 50 questions to deepen your friendships, and there are so many others. So if you head over to patreon.com/girldefined and join our team, link arms with us to say, yes, I want to see content like this on YouTube. I want to see content like this on Instagram. I want to see this content out in the world. Link arms with us. You can give like $4 a month. You'll get all the past free resources plus every new one we create moving forward. Head on over to patreon.com/girldefined. This topic today is really relevant because so much of the things that happened in my past 10 years of marriage were not a part of my plan at all. And I think some of the regrets that I have, actually, the first thing I'm going to share is my biggest regret is getting married and having a very naive perspective about life. You know, when Zach and I got married, I remember thinking this on our honeymoon, that life just couldn't be more perfect. I remember thinking, wow, we're both healthy. God has blessed us with this amazing marriage. I'm like head over heels in love with this man. We both have really great families. We love our city, our community. Like, I just remember thinking life is perfect. You know, we've got God. Like, how could anything go wrong? Like, life is perfect. And yeah, that was so naive. I mean, life was wonderful and we had a lot of blessings, but I think I took that perspective into our marriage, into this new family unit that Zach and I formed together. And I just kind of assumed that pattern of what I felt on my wedding day, on my honeymoon, would be the reality for forever. And so I think the biggest thing that I regret looking back on the past 10 years is I wish I had a more realistic perspective about life and the struggles that every single person is going to go through. A lot of you know my story, and that is one that white picket fence and that dream of having, you know, children and just motherhood, something that I've always longed for. Y'all know, many of you know that Zach and I, that wasn't our reality, that we faced early miscarriages back to back. Years of unexplained infertility, another miscarriage later on that totally caught us by surprise. We were not thinking that pregnancy was going to be in our future, got pregnant, miscarried much later in the pregnancy, so it was much more heart-wrenching. And just the diagnosis of unexplained infertility continuing on, and then God really changing our hearts and opening our hearts up to adoption, which is so beautiful and something that I just have such a passion for now. I love it so much, and just seeing the gospel in that picture it's life-changing. But for years, I struggled with accepting my reality because I had that vision of what my life should have been, what I thought it should have been when I got married, thinking that everything was going to continue being perfect and going according to my plan. And so I feel like I spent a lot of my years almost feeling like, okay, this isn't, like, I just need to get over this so that my life can really get started. Like, almost living in a place of like, this isn't really my best life, you know, and I've got to just keep pressing on so I can get to that better place. And what God kept showing me over and over again is that this was my life. This was my story. This was his plan for me. walking through loss, walking through the unknowns, walking through diagnosis, dozens and dozens of doctor visits, wrestling with watching other family members and friends easily get pregnant and start their families and longing for that. God had to really bring me to a place to say, this is the story I have for you. And I know it feels like brokenness. I know all you see is pain and loss, but I'm doing something here. I'm working, I'm creating, I'm turning your ashes into beauty in a way that you can't even see yet. And as time went on, God started opening my eyes to seeing ways that what felt like brokenness, he was actually using in beautiful ways in my own heart, in the lives of people I knew who were walking through similar struggles and trials and loss, the ways we were able to link arms and encourage one another, the way that my infertility led Zach and I down the path of adoption to now have our two beautiful, precious sons that we would never have if God didn't have that part of my story. So if you are like, yeah, my life right now isn't turning out the way I imagined, and maybe you're at a place where you're like, I regret not living more intentionally, I would say that's probably my regret, is being naive and not living more intentionally during those years of unknowns and loss and heartbreak, accepting God's story for me, and then really trying to see the good and the beauty that he was doing in the midst of that. If that's you, I really hope you'll find encouragement in the new book that I wrote with my sister, Not Part of the Plan, Trusting God with the Twists and Turns of Your Story. This is a book out of my own journey, out of Bethany's own journey of wrestling through the valleys, through the loss, through the unknowns, the prayers that feel unanswered, questioning God, God, where are you in the midst of this? How can anything good come from this? If you've ever felt that, or if you're in that right now, I want to invite you to join me on this journey through this book. It's probably the most raw and relatable book I've ever written, just sharing parts of my story in my heart that I've never shared before. And I hope you'll find a lot of encouragement from that. So this releases October 12th, but it's available for pre-order now. I think you can go to girldefined.com/trust to get more details. So that would be the first biggest regret, is just this idyllic perspective of life in marriage. And then the second biggest regret I have looking back on my 10 years of marriage is I looked to Zach to be my source for happiness often. Not all the time. As a good Christian girl, I knew, okay, God is my only true source of fulfillment of happiness, like my true source of purpose and identity. But over and over again, I found myself looking to Zach to be that thing that's going to fix my heart, that's going to fix my struggles, that's going to make my life perfect, that's going to make me happy when I'm sad. And don't get me wrong, Zach is an amazing husband, and he has brought me so much joy and so much happiness, so much comfort, just so much companionship and friendship and love in our marriage. We have a beautiful relationship that we've worked hard to cultivate and developed, that, we seek to keep God at the center. But I can just think of so many times in the past 10 years where I got my focus off of God and shifted it to Zach. And I know, as I've talked to a lot of you, it's hard, whether you're married or single, to not do that, because that guy is right there, right? You can see him, he's tangible, you can touch him, and he can hug you. And so it's easy to look to that person to be our comfort, to be our source of happiness. And we really place them up on a pedestal and kind of idolize them and look to them in a way that God only designed our hearts to find satisfaction in him. And so God has over and over again helped me grow in that, from that, to see, okay, God truly is the one that my soul needs. He is the one that my heart is truly longing for. In that ache, I need to run to him first. And yes, there's joy and beauty and companionship and love in the marriage, but I need to go to the Lord first. And so God has grown me in that. But I do look back and regret the many times that I really placed God second. So another tip for you girls who are young, maybe newly married, just know, even 10 years later, with being married to an amazing, godly, loving husband, he is not the one that God designed to truly satisfy me and to be my happiness. I can only find that source of joy and peace and identity in the Lord. And that's the only place you can find it too. So single or married, find it in the Lord. So those are the two things. One other thing that I regret looking back on these past 10 years of marriage is that I wish I had gotten a mentor sooner. You guys know we are passionate about mentorship here at Girl Defined, but I didn't have a mentor when we first got married. I mean, I had my mom, and she was amazing and would speak into my life and pray for me, and we'd chat and stuff, but it wasn't as much of a dedicated, every week or every 2 weeks we're meeting specifically to disciple me, in that sense. And so I wish I have a mentor now, and it's amazing. And looking back on my early days of marriage and just thinking of a lot of the struggles I was personally walking through as a young wife, filled with expectations, hopes, and dreams, and then walking through those seasons of of unexpected loss. I wish I had an older godly woman who was committed to meeting with me on a regular basis and just kind of linking arms with me, guiding me through all of that. That would have been huge in those early years of marriage. So looking back, I regret that. I really wish I had that. If I could go back in time, I would ask someone the day I got back from my honeymoon. I would find a godly woman like, please, can you mentor me? So I encourage you, wherever you at, whether you've been married for a while, you're single, you're newly married, find a godly woman who can mentor you. If you need help knowing how to navigate that, head over to our website, girldefined.com, and just search mentor. I wrote an entire post on how to ask a godly woman to be your mentor. And I even share the specific text that I sent to my mentor when I asked her to become my mentor. So I know it's scary. I know it feels hard, but just start praying that God would bring someone to mind. Go read that post on girldefined.com and then reach out. Don't be scared. So those are a few of the things that I regret looking back on my past 10 years of marriage. But again, I do not regret my marriage at all. I love my husband so much. It has been a huge gift, a huge blessing. And I pray God gives us, I'm shooting for living to 100. We'll see if that happens. So I don't know. I guess that would mean Zach and I would have close to 80 years of marriage, the high 70s. But typically women live longer than men, so I don't know, he's shooting for a lot too, but I don't think his goal is quite as high as mine. Anyways, I love you guys so much. I would love to continue this conversation. What regrets, if you're married, I would love to hear from you. What regrets do you have looking back on your past however many years of marriage, whether in your own heart or things you wished you had done differently? And then what do you take away from this if you're not married? Was this helpful? Give me your feedback. Head on over to Instagram @girldefined. Leave me a comment and let's continue this conversation.